Can I have my mic? There we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm like, I'm not done. So up next, we have Brendan moderating Advocacy Starts at Home, Making an Impact Locally, where he's going to show us with his amazing panel how to take the things that we're learning here back to our local community. So Brendan, come on up. Thank you.
That was awesome. I promise I didn't prep Megan to confirm everything that I said an hour and a half ago. But always nice to hear from multiple sources. And those are two of our favorite staffers and two incredibly important staffers for a majority of the issues that we're working on. So that was awesome. Now we are here.
Yes, sir.
Advocacy starting at home. I joke with our lobbyists. I call myself the triple threat of advocacy. Federal level, I testify in Annapolis on the state level all the time, and I stopped a stoplight from being at the top of my street. You can make a huge impact at home just with yourself and being a squeaky wheel. And we're going to talk about some strategies on how to do that and make things better. And the more and more you're doing this, the better you're going to be at all levels. So first of all, thank you guys for being here. We're going to quickly go through just, name, brief introduction, what you do. Peter, let's start with you.
Peter Carlin, I'm an LO in New York, representing Go Rascal.
Yeah.
I'm Christian Butterfield. I run wholesale for Gold Star Mortgage.
Thank you. And Justin Kintz, I'm a partner at Forbes Tate Partners, where we represent many clients, including you all.
Oh, yeah. Justin, let's start with you. So you're at Forbes Tate, but you focus specifically on state level stuff. Could you just talk a little more specifically about your role there, what you do, and Yeah,
happy to. Thanks. Yeah, I come from a career, almost 20 years in politics at all levels, international, federal, state, local, really hyper-local, down to the smallest towns or specific districts. And I used to run government affairs for a couple of well-known brands, Peloton, Uber, Orbitz, the online travel company. Uber was very hyper-local and really focused on states, as you might imagine. I was our first government affairs person at Uber and helped build up a team that initially was just focused on 11 cities at the time that were big cities, but then scaled to almost 1,000 cities worldwide. And each one was like its own little snowflake that had its own unique politics and opposition, and we had very intense opponents that wanted to keep us out of those cities. So whether it was Mumbai or New York City or Daytona, Florida, I mean, it was all sort of, you had to run a campaign in each to break through. And we learned a lot of lessons that way, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah, awesome. And so you guys are aware, Justin's part of the Forbes State team. Our goal is to get the state captain and get all of you advocating to the level that we really need to be able to take advantage of someone like Justin and really jump up a level. But first we have to kind of get the baseline, get you guys out there, have enough going on at the state level to justify bringing Justin onto the team. So that is the goal. And we would really be able to rocket stuff forward. There's so much stuff on the state level, whether it's Texas cash out stuff or all the nonsense, all the reasons the lenders up here are not getting licensed in New York. Scott doesn't want to hear this, but that needs to be fixed. It needs to be easier to get licensed in New York. And if we get a few more steps forward with the state level stuff, we can bring Justin on and really take it to the next level. But we have been able to bootstrap some stuff. As you're all aware, brokers are by and large cut out of the state DPA programs. We are not able to do this. It is antiquated BS from the fallout of 2008. And it's not just brokers, it's TPO. So I talked about TPO before. There's rules in all these contracts saying no TPO, and that's a reason that we're not able to. Christian at Gold Star has been integral in helping us. We've actually changed that in 3 states so far, 2.5. Christian, can you talk a little bit about, so in Florida, we were successful with Hometown Heroes. In Ohio, we're there. In Maryland, we're there. Not quite where we should be, though, because of some BS with Maryland. But just talk a little bit about how the process works of getting brokers access to these programs. Who do we need to talk to? And take notes on this, because this is going to be a game plan that you guys are going to start executing at home.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue, I think, with the states is that the HFAs just don't really understand the difference in
What's an HFA?
HFA is a state housing finance agency, so they basically regulate most of the DPA programs. Some states might have different acronyms, but for the most part, HFAs can kind of fall under it. They just don't know the difference in channels, and really the local players that are the loudest in those government spaces are usually the banks. Has been the banks from the beginning, right? So obviously they're the ones that were at the forefront. But for example, in Florida and Ohio, brokers got really active. Some of you in this room were really active over the Florida legislation. And I can tell you, Florida and Ohio are great success stories because both of those HFAs are just very impressed with the amount of business and production that has come from the brokers in an impactful way. Not so much, I tell you a lot of the HFAs maybe don't like all the increase in production because none of them, I would say, like to work as hard as they should. But it's very impactful because the reality is the brokers have a much more influential local reach than some of these bankers do, right? It's pretty obvious. So, but the reality is they don't know what's out there. A lot of these HFAs that have opened up TPO they don't really set competitive parameters, right? Some of them don't allow BPC, some allow BPC incorrectly, there's all sorts of things, right? And the number one way to start this is by educating those HFAs, the local legislators, over what you guys do, how you guys do it, and how impactful you are in the community. Because if they don't know about it, it's just not on their radar whatsoever, and they all think those products work because they're actively producing in those states, but the impact could be so much greater if the brokers had participation, right? So, and it's not to be, I think everybody has a fair shake in this, right? There's a place for the bankers, there's a place for brokers, but there definitely should be a place for brokers in every state. And so, I tell Brendan, we'll chop at it state by state, little by little, but it's really important for you guys to be active. I used to work in politics in a past career. Something that we talked about when I lobbied, when we would tell clients is you're either at the table or on the table, right? And so if you're not having those active conversations, you're not going to be on there. You're going to get cut. Things happen. So to this day in Florida, Hometown Heroes continues to be an active conversation because there's active participation from the state captains at the back and everything to promote that. So we just need to continue to do that in the other states.
And to Christian's point, Florida was kind of perfect timing because when we made the push for Hometown Heroes, they had just gotten a ton of funding. The last time that Florida, these programs got that much funding was coming out of 2008, and they got murdered for not getting the money out. They could not get it out. And that's like, well, why are we allocating all this money in the state budget to you if you're not actually going to use it? And that's not good for them, right? And we were able to pitch, this was a multifaceted solution, but think about it this way, it is an easy pitch. Okay, you want to get this money out the door, stop handcuffing yourself by not making an access to half of your sales force, right? Mortgage brokers are 25% of originations nationwide. In Florida, I don't know the number, it's at least 50 is probably conservative. So no wonder they couldn't get the money out the door. Most of the people who are out there selling it don't actually have access to it. That is a pitch that will work for what you're essentially talking about, bureaucrats who were under pressure previously, but to Christian's point, what we're talking about to ones that didn't necessarily have that problem is more work for them, but it is a pitch that's going to be effective for politicians. So any state level people you can get this in front of will go leaps and bounds. And we're going to start trickling states for you guys to focus on. But if you make any traction in your state, you will go to the top of the list, and we'll start putting stuff together for you.
Yeah, and something I'll add, when you guys are advocating, a lot of people want to focus on the agency directors and stuff like that, but a lot of the time when you get an agency director never wants to hear from a legislator, right, to start poking around. And so, if you go to your legislators directly and can create a little bit of momentum that way, that's also very helpful when you're talking to these divisional heads because they're getting pressure from a different angle, right, versus just listening to you, and shelving the conversation for whenever it becomes active again.
No doubt. And if you get the attention of a state delegate, you don't have to know everything inside and out. Just be like, hey, are you aware that about a quarter of the originators that are usually the most local originators in our state don't have access to the down payment assistance program? And if they go, no, and any follow-up, whatever, just get them. The goal in the initial conversation is not to sell them and pass the bill in the initial meeting, right? It's to set up the next meeting. Get there, reach out to us, we'll get on board. Hopefully get Justin on board at some point too, but yeah.
Yeah, Christian's approach is such a good one. You really, at the federal level, what you're doing here is incredibly important, and it's really, really good. But things move very slowly here. It's like trying to steer an aircraft carrier. The states are more like speedboats, like much more nimble. They actually are incentivized. They have to pass budgets constitutionally, so they get stuff done. They actually clear bills off the docket. They pass things, which doesn't happen here very often here in Washington. So if you can just make a little bit of action happen at a state, you might be able to actually change the law in a dramatic way. So, by focusing both on going at the decision maker, whether it's an administration person or by going to a legislator to curry influence to then do a bank shot to the administration, that's all really, really important. And most importantly, it's coming from a constituent. They don't need to have a lobbyist in between. If you kind of know what you're doing and know how to navigate, you can do a lot of the work yourself. Now, people like me can definitely help speed that process up and give you some leverage, but they want to hear from their constituents. And so, starting local, starting with one champion that you can really get to buy into your issues, understand them at a near expert level, which your previous panel talked a little bit about, getting deep in the issues, and then they will go be a mouthpiece for you, and they can take you a really far away. You don't have to learn all 200 or 300 people in the state legislature. You get one, get them really bought in, make them an advocate, and they will prove miracles for you.
I love, and they'll come back to you. You'll become a known quantity. You're helping them do their job. Their goal is to pass bills that help people, and if you bring them not just a problem but a solution, they're going to love you. And I can promise you that that's true. And to Justin's point, the lobbyists can definitely help. They want to hear from you, but the lobbyists can make sure that we are saying our message to the person that's going to be most receptive to it. That's exactly what Forbes State does on the federal level, and why people like Megan and Ed are up here, and they can do it on the state level as well. And speaking of constituents.
Sir.
All right, I wanted you up here so you could hear this first and foremost. So Peter is amazing. Peter has jumped headfirst into everything back related. I was in the hallway with him earlier, and I was like, I love that Scott brought so many people out there, and he's like, Scott didn't do that, I did that, and I love it. So you told me something else interesting in that you've been in the mortgage industry for 12 years, and you've never had plenty of opportunities, but never been involved in any advocacy organization. Tell me why, you, other than just my charisma, you are a fly to light when it comes to back stuff. What's different?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. So it was, and it's so great that he's sitting here because he wasn't supposed to be sitting here moderating this panel today. But
I'm much uglier than Whitley, but we'll make that.
But it was you. It was you. It was 2 years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago that you came in on one of our sales calls,
yeah.
And I heard what you were saying, and I was like, you were like calling to me, like how to make a difference. And again, 12 and a half years in the business, and I've never been, wanted to really, I didn't know about participating as an originator in any kind of organization, right? And it's been 2 years, about 2.5 years that I'm a broker now. But you came on and I heard what you were saying and I was like, wow, I feel like, you almost made me feel like I had to get involved. Like I had a, this is our community, right? If we're not gonna do this for our community, I mean, who the heck who are we doing it for? So I just speak to people. I speak to my friends who are here today, and the originators that I've met along the way and people that I met recently and said, hey, you gotta just listen to what's going on here because you may plug in like I plugged in and let's tell people and get it done.
I love it. You did bring a big Go Rascal contingent, which I love. And it sounds like you just kind of told me generally, but when you were getting these guys out here, because I want all of you, you guys all love this stuff too. You guys are all a bunch of Peters up here, and I love it. Peter was able to bring a whole big crew, and a lot of you did too. I want you to tell them what they should be saying to their coworkers, and how to get them more involved.
Well, also just a shout out to my man Tom Sloan as well, because I came out here last year with Tom, and it was right. I heard you on the sales call, and then Tom. Tom is really plugged into the community, and he was like, "Come on, we'll go together." So we, took the train down last year, and when we went to the Capitol Hill last year, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm speaking to a legislative stuff. I'm making a difference here, like serious impact in law, in a law, the trigger lead bill." I couldn't believe it. And after that day that legislator
Went on the
signed
bill,
on board.
yeah.
They went on the bill. So what I would say to my folks who came down here, and not just my folks, but everybody, just talk to people, right? I mean, just let them know what we're up to, right? We could double the size of this room next year, you know, if we just talk to people, and that's all I do. I mean, I'm not
I love it.
special. I'm just saying, hey, listen, you should come down and check this out and hear what these guys are up to.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Justin, so yesterday, while one of the panels of a bunch of our state advocates was going on, I was getting texts from a broker out of Alabama, Ross Sykes, who's not here because he was literally on at the Alabama Capitol as a bill that he has been working his ass on got passed unanimously and is on the way to the governor's desk that helps disabled veterans in Alabama become homeowners. It's amazing and something we passed. I think that makes 6 states now. Ross, you know, he would text me constantly, and he's like, because he was banging his head against the wall, like talking to a legislator, never hearing back from him, this and that. Can you talk to people about, okay, if anyone out there wants to, whether it's the disabled veteran bill or any other problem in your state they want to get fixed and they want to kind of bootstrap it, what's the first thing they should do? Who should they talk to? Any like step one strategy stuff you can share with everyone would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, first of all, you always want to ground yourself in your backyard. Okay, so let's say you're approaching a state bill. You want just the same way you're approaching these folks here on Capitol Hill, which is you're dividing it up by where you're coming from. They are incentivized to care about you because you're their voters and constituents and everything. So there are state versions of that too. So you need to figure out, okay, where do I live or where is my business based? Who's my state representative? Who's my state senator? You look those people up, and then you can find a way to make an outreach to their office. They typically have an office in your district and one in the state capitol. You can contact either one. You can also send an email to one of their staffers, or sometimes they do the work themselves. At state level, they don't always have the budget to have a bunch of Megans and Eds like before here in Capitol Hill. They often sometimes do the work themselves. They're usually, a state legislator, as that's their moonlight thing. They often have a full-time job in the district. They're often lawyers, but sometimes they're small business owners or whatever, and you may have a chance at sort of getting to know them just directly. But starting off by contacting your people first and saying, hey, here's what I'd like to do. Here's why I'm passionate about it. Here's why it matters to this district. Where do I go from here? And very often that will spark the conversation that unlocks a bunch of doors for you. If they don't respond to you or you can't break through at all, then you just sort of, go to look for a legislator that maybe has covered that issue before. Talk to Brendan, and he or we can help you out and help find someone to get you started. But someone sitting on the right committee, someone who's taken a legislative interest in your issue before, would be a good place to start, even if maybe they're not your district. But you got to ground yourself back in your backyard first and foremost. And then, even if you happen to have some contacts with your local leadership, a mayor, a city council person, something like that, a neighborhood association person, sometimes they have the relationship with that state representative. They often do, in fact, and they can help make a warm introduction for you.
I love it. And they want to talk to you. They might not always follow through, but they want to talk to you. It's with all this stuff, right? Everything that we're pitching down here, and everything, and frankly, your brokerage too, you're not selling to yourself. You need to think about the person that you're talking to and their perspective. And the local politicians and federal ones too, if you really want to boil things down, their number one priority is to be the most popular person in their district, right? They want to be popular. They want everyone to like them and vote for them, if we make things very simple. And all of you have so much more influence in your community that you think you do. For a lot of you are business owners, and you also want to be very popular and know a lot of people, and you network and you do a lot of business. You have a lot of clients in their district, and even if you don't, they think you do, so it really doesn't matter. You can help them, and they know that. So keep that in mind when you're interacting with them. If you just cold email your state delegate, they'll respond. If you ask them that you want to do a meeting, whether it's coming to their office or going for coffee, you'll hear back from them and your staff. You absolutely will.
Even if you don't, be persistent. I mean, I tell people all the time, the best 2 lobbyists I know are my kids, because they wear me down. They just ask and ask and ask, and then finally I'm like, fine, eat the chocolate, I don't care. So legislators are like that as well. They're easily worn down, so be persistent. Even if you don't hear back once or twice, keep going.
Yep.
They're kind of obligated to respond to you really. So if maybe you don't hear back, it could be a clerical error or something like that.
Well, and like to that point, like they want you to like them. They also don't want you not to like them, right? And if they ignore you, and they can clear, I missed the email, this and that. But if you're persistent and they're not responding, they know they're going to have a problem on their hand because you're going to be out there talking shit about them, and that's a big problem for them because a lot of these politicians, you guys probably don't know who your state delegate is, and that's true with everyone. But if one of your friends tells you how awful something they did was, or how much the delegate pissed them off, you're going to remember that, and you're going to remember their name next time you see them at the ballots. They are very acutely aware of this and use it to your advantage.
And most of them don't want to stop at being a state delegate. Most of them want to be a governor, a senator, or just continue to go up the ladder. So they want to attract as much name recognition as possible, and the more people they meet and the more sort of bills they can attach themselves to that might have some notoriety, the more interesting it's going to be for them.
So on that front, specifically with the DPA stuff, Christian, can you talk about, so we can have the politicians definitely help put pressure. Would you advise anyone reaching out directly? So in Maryland, it's like the Department of Financial Regulation. What these are basically are state level CFPBs is the easiest way to explain it. Would you advise people reaching out directly to them? And if so, how to go about it? Because you have to be a little kid gloves with them.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's kind of dependent on each state because every state has its own kind of maze to kind of understand how to go through, and Justin can definitely help, and your state captains can help. But something to what you guys were saying, I mean, I would challenge all of you guys, if you're interested in getting into state advocacy, you should all, when you go home or tonight or whatever, look up who your state legislator is in your district, your state senator, and shoot them an email. Start there and say, hey, I'm a local active community member that's making home ownership happen, and in this state, I'm having an obstacle. I bet you he responds. And if not, a staffer will respond. If he doesn't respond, bug him, like Justin's saying, right? And then that'll lead to a meeting. The office is in your district. You don't have to go to the state capitol. You don't have to come to D.C. And because that's the way this stuff happens. It's, if you don't have a ton of lobbying prowess, which it's going to be hard across every state, you have to have a grassroots effort, right? And you guys are all influential members of your community. By the way, DPAs have a huge effect with realtors, right? Because we all know realtors love using banks, right? No, they don't, right? And so when they're giving you those deals, they wish you could do that DPA deal. When I was an originator, I heard that all the time, right? And so unfortunately, as a broker, I could never do Florida housing. I'm originally from Florida. So I'm very jealous of all of you who are originating Florida housing deals because I can't do it. But that you got to start somewhere, right? And a lot of once you start talking to those legislators, sometimes they will direct you straight to the agency director, like Brendan mentioned, right? And say, hey, start here, right? And so it's just starting somewhere. And I highly suggest you guys start there because it's just so easy. It's very local, and you'll have an influential effect more than you think.
And I really liked everything Christian said, but something very specific, and it leads to in the first meeting, you're not passing the bill, right? Take things baby steps. In your initial outreach, you do not need to get a detailed description out there of the problem. Just be like, I'm having an issue, I'd like to talk to you about it. Invite him for coffee, meeting, whatever. If you're at a brokerage with a significant, or not even, I don't care how many loan officers there are, be like, hey, we're having some issues, but more importantly, our brokerage wants to pay more attention to state level legislation, and we thought a great place to start would everybody meeting you. Will you come to our brokerage one day for lunch? They would love that, absolutely love it. They'd be out of their minds to say no to it. Just get to know them, and when they're there, tell them about the problem, but get to know them, start developing a relationship. The same thing with everything. It's relationships, and the more they get to know you, the more they're going to trust you. They know that we're subject matter experts based on our profession, but they don't know if you're decent and that you don't have some ulterior motive. We don't, but they don't know that right away. So you got to let them get to know you a little bit, so that they know that your heart's in the right place and you're trying to make things better. I mean, for yourself, but better for everyone else in the state too.
And should they say, look, where would I get started? I don't really know what this looks like in legislation, or maybe I don't have much of a legislative staff to help me out. Take one of those 6 state bills that are already passed or in flight. Yep. The Alabama bill that's about to pass.
100%.
And they love
yes.
replication at the state levels. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of state legislative exchanges that create model legislation. It's a little controversial, but they create a model bill that they hand to all 50 states and try to pass it all at once. So they feel much more confident that they're not the first state, that if they're the fourth or sixth, they're like, okay, this is fine.
Well, and with the DPAs specifically, a lot of them don't require bills because it's just policy adjustments at an agency, right? So that's even easier, specifically if there's no budget allocation, which a lot of the DPAs won't need it because they already have the money. So it's just a true policy change. So some of that can be a lot easier, and state legislators love exerting their influence when they can, and they can do it a lot easier over policy than bills, because bills can be a little bit of a popularity contest.
They'll know it's a more obtainable win. Like, they don't have to get everyone else to vote for it if they can just put a little pressure on the right people. Because to get the DPA stuff changed, now improving the programs, step two. Some brokers have been like, yeah, whatever, my program sucks. Like, great, let's get access to it and then we can fix it. Furthermore, I think most of you would absolutely love access to the down payment assistance program. Some of you might be like, well, I'm not going to do much of it. Like, we got it in Maryland. I'm not going to do a lot of it. I hope to, but like, I know realistically I'm not. That's not the point. First of all, it's the right thing to do. Second of all, if any of you have tried to recruit retail loan officers, they think they need this program so much more than they do. And you telling them you're wrong, you don't need it, that's a tough sell, right? They know what they know. And if we just have access to it, we're like, yep, no problem. And then they'll get in and see that they can do a lot of other stuff and they don't actually need it. But like, it will absolutely help you recruit. Justin, 2 quick questions before we open it up for questions if anyone has any. One, you said something earlier about model legislation, and you told me something in a previous conversation. I was trying to remember the states. There are states that, there's like a couple examples of red states and blue states that, and this is stuff where partisanship will come into it a little bit, where there's blue states that if they pass legislation, you're more likely to get other states to pass similar versions, as well as red states. Which were those states?
Well, it can change.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, historically, like, it sort of depends on the issue. So for insurance, for example, like the chair of the insurance commissioners, state legislative insurance commissioners, is often from a state like North Dakota, like a state that's like often overlooked because it's small, but they carry huge influence in insurance. Like for just general issues, if you get a Missouri, that's kind of like a nice bellwether state. If you look at any purple state, Virginia is a good example, because if you can get it through in Virginia, that's a nice bipartisan state. It's likely to be portable. If it's a hyper-partisan issue, you go get a bright red state, then that's going to go fly through in the other bright red states and vice versa. Okay, so for us, largely purple states, because most of our stuff is not going, everyone's going to like it once they understand it. And we're going to have information soon. So Idaho passed trigger lead legislation. The states don't really have the ability to ban trigger leads because it's a violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Some of them might do it anyways, which would be great. But what they're doing is kind of hobbling it. So Idaho was like, if you're going to use trigger leads and when you call, you have to disclose who you are and who you work for. Frickin' imagine that. Like, unbelievable, right? And we're working with the coalition. The MBA, Lending Tree is actually a big part of this. Lending Tree hates trigger leads. To get it passed in a couple states and try to have a waterfall effect. We're going to fix it federally. In the meantime, I'll attack a problem from as many angles as possible. And if we get this kind of stuff passed at the state level, it makes our argument on the federal level that much easier. All these states are sick of it. Just fix it. Before questions, any cool stories from your Uber days? There's a lot. Let's see. So, to this point, actually, this isn't even an Uber thing. I'll give you a different story, which is like starting at home. So during COVID, I was sitting home. I was a little bored. Like, our business had ground to a halt with Uber, and I'm kind of like, what is going on here? And my dog at the time was kind of a young pup and wanted to go to the dog park all the time and was just a total maniac at the house. And they shut the dog park down for COVID. So the county shut it down, put a padlock on the dog park. My dog was destroying my house, eating all of our stuff. It was driving me nuts. And I just got really incensed about it. I think I was a little crazy because of the pandemic, but I went nuts and I said, I'm going to lead a one-person campaign to reopen the dog parks. And so I didn't know who ran the dog parks in my county, but I went online, I did some research, I asked around a little bit, figured out who ran the Parks and Rec department, contacted them, and they said, no, we're not reopening it. Went to the county board, went to the town hall meeting the next week and on Zoom. And I said, hey, I think you should open the dog park. It's outside. It seems like everything's fine. No, we're not going to open that. And so I ended up, creating a petition, circulating it in my community, I went and bought $100 worth of Facebook ads that were just geo-targeted at the county board people. I made up 100 flyers and put them only in places that were like hyper visible to the community and to the county board so that they thought it was much bigger than it was. And no one really cared. In fact, most people were annoyed. My neighbors were annoyed, but it ended up working, and they unlocked the dog park not long after. And they've said to me basically like, never do this again. But you know, to the theme of the day, if you're persistent, if you are local, if you ground yourself in your backyard and just do a little legwork on trying to navigate it, you can move mountains. You can get a lot done.
That was a much better story. Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap and keep things moving. We have to be at the reception at 5 o'clock. We're going to do a quick break and then get right back here. Two incredibly important panels, especially Kelly Williams telling you the do's and don'ts so we don't get ourselves in trouble tomorrow. So take a quick break, give these guys a little round of applause, and I'll see you back soon.